Good evening, everybody. I'm Cassandra. Welcome to Bombyx. And welcome back for those of you who are super engaged and you've been with us for at least 2 or more events this election season. Raise your hand if you've been to at least 2 events here. Yes, you are my people. I'm here for all of them, so it's great. A couple of quick flight attendant announcements. If you have lost a watch, we have that up at the front of house. So come, check your wrists. Is everything there that was supposed to be there? If not, we have that for you. Just check in with Dalila and she can get that back to you. Also, if you need an assisted listening device, see our tech Matthew at the back of the house. We have those for you. Just ask. We have those for every show. Let's see, what else can I tell you that's really important? Okay, I have to make that standard announcement, which is to say that Bombyx is not endorsing any candidates for political office. The ideas and opinions expressed by the candidates are their own and do not represent the ideas and beliefs of the board, myself, or any of the staff. There you go, we did that. We are, however, really excited to host this whole season of events. This is a great opportunity to share information and ideas in person and to ask questions. And in a minute or so, I will tell you how you're going to do that. Well, actually, I'm not going to tell you how to do that, but our amazing moderator will. So we'll get to that in a second. For the handful of you who are new to Bombyx this evening, the restrooms are down the hall to my left, your right. They're a bit of a hike, but you know you're getting close when you hear the sound of drumming because the amazing Mountain River Taiko drummers are rehearsing tonight. So if there's a lull in the conversation on stage tonight, you'll know because we'll hear them. Or maybe you want to join them. You have some frustration to work out, and that's a great, positive, creative way to do it. Yeah. This whole series of events with the League of Women Voters would not have been possible without their support, the support of the Chamber of Commerce, our incredible friends at Northampton Open Media who have been streaming these events, which also means that you can find the stream on YouTube and the recording on both their website and their YouTube page. So if there's something really juicy that you hear tonight that you want to go back and rewatch so you really get it, or some really gnarly budget thing that you're like, oh, I think I understand that, but it's getting late and I'm tired. You can always go back and, just review that information so that you feel like you really have it. As with all of our events, I want to share a couple of agreements in this space. They apply to you, our audience, as well as our candidates. Perhaps the first and most important one is that we really need to be courteous with one another. We don't have to agree, but if we could please refrain from, or the big eye roll, or the shuffle, 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 I'm gonna scroll, 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 and send a text. Let's all just really work on being present and holding space for one another and understanding that it's actually really tough to be a candidate. It's tough to go out there week after week and engage with people and express your ideas and know that some percentage of the residents in this community don't agree with you. Some percentage of them do, but there are also those that don't. So to be able to hold that strength and fortitude is really a challenge. So please respect our candidates for their effort in that work. The second related agreement is that we really listen to understand. Not to come up with our latest zinger or counterpoint, but to really hear what the candidates have to say. And again, we don't have to necessarily agree, but we really want to see if we can, with our minds, wrap our understanding around where are they coming from? Why do they believe that? Why do they think that's important? Why are they here in this campaign? Last but not least, particularly for those of you who were here last night, let's all get a little comfortable with imperfection. The AI voice-to-text last night was creative, pleasure-focused. So understanding that the technology is doing the best that it can to help us understand, and we're trying to make it everything possible all at the same time. So hoping that you can hold a spirit of generosity and lightheartedness as we move through that, And also that at the end of this event, you may not know everything that you want to know. We may not get to ask every question, and we may not have every question answered. But hopefully at the end of the night, we can grow in our understanding and in our compassion for one another. Can we do that? Thank you. All right. Without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome our moderator, Samantha Giffen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. So just to really start, the League is about democracy, and democracy requires participation. So thank you all who are here with us tonight in person, and a special thank you to those joining us online as well. And a special thank you to the candidates and all candidates running for the Northampton 2025 municipal elections. This forum is organized by the League of Women Voters of the Northampton area. My name is Samantha Giffen, and I'm a member of the Northampton Area League, but I reside and vote in East Hampton. I will be your moderator for the evening. The League of Women Voters, for those who don't know, we are a nonpartisan political organization whose mission is to encourage informed and active participation in government, including voting and learning about candidates and everything going on in your community. Tonight's event is co-sponsored by the Bombyx Center for Arts and Equity, who provided this space, as well as the technical support and volunteers for the evening. Another co-sponsor is the Northampton Open Media, who is live streaming tonight's event, and a recording will be available at their website, along with recorded interviews that each candidate did as well. Tonight's forum is also co-sponsored by the Daily Hampshire Gazette and the Northampton Chamber of Commerce. I'd also like to thank our volunteers, our timekeepers up front. Thank you. And all of the other volunteers who have helped make tonight possible. Thank you for all the tireless work that you do behind the scenes. So tonight we have a full agenda. First, we'll be hearing from the 3 candidates vying for the 2 at-large school committee positions. Then we'll have a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and hear from 2 candidates vying for the Ward 2 school committee position. If you are looking to learn more about candidates on the other candidates on the ballot, again, Northampton Open Media has information and interviews with candidates on their website and YouTube. Our panelists for tonight are Alexander McDougall of the Daily Hampshire Gazette and Jean Sherdak of the League of Women Voters of Franklin County. Jean will be presenting questions from the audience and the questions that were submitted online through the Northampton League's website in advance of tonight's event. For the audience, just a few additional reminders. If you would like to submit a question for the candidate tonight, please write it on a note card that you were given at the door and pass it to the nearest aisle. If you're sitting on an aisle, please raise a note card and one of our volunteers will come by and pick it up and deliver it to our panelists. Please address your question to all of the candidates. We don't want any questions that are directed just to one candidate. We want to be able to hear from all of the candidates tonight. We will also have a brief break, as I mentioned, between the at-large candidates, and then we will resume with the Ward 2 candidates, again, for school committee. During the break, we will be showing a slide that you saw at the beginning above the stage that contains voting information. Please feel free to take a picture, share with friends and family, make sure everyone has the info they need to participate in this year's election. And please save your applause until the end. This is really important, just so that we can make sure we give the candidates our full attention and we can get through as many questions as possible so we can learn about the candidates. Finally, please silence and put your phones away. That includes the candidates, just to, again, keep our attention focused. So tonight, we have 3 candidates for the 2 school committee at-large positions. First, we have Tiffany Jewell, Emily Seraphy Cox, and Roberta Robbie Sainer Sullivan. For the candidates, we'll begin with 2-minute opening statements. Then each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question from the panel. We will rotate who answers the question first, and then we will conclude with 1-minute closing statements. We won't be providing additional time for rebuttals, but if you do want to respond to something raised by the other candidate, you can work that into your allotted time. The timekeepers will hold up signs throughout each question telling you when you have 30 seconds and 15 seconds left, and then when they hold up that stop sign, please finish your sentence quickly, and so we don't have to cut you off, but we want to hear the completion of your thought. So with that, I think we are ready to begin. So we're going to get started with opening statements. We're going to go in the order that you will be presented on the ballot, so we'll be starting with Tiffany.
Okay. So I know our schools. I'm an educator with 20 years of experience working with children and families in Northampton. I'm an author. I write books about social justice for kids, and really they're for everyone. I'm also a caregiver to 2 kids who are currently in our public schools. I'm running for school committee because I love our schools. And I know our schools, the buildings, the teachers, the staff, the learners, and I'm not new to this work. During the pandemic, I worked with many folks in our school community on our district improvement plan, served on the Jackson Street School Council for multiple years, working on school improvement plans and reviewing and strategizing the budget. I've served on hiring committees at the Montessori School, have advocated at the national level for anti-bias, anti-racist work in teacher training programs, and have served on local and national boards centered around education and literacy for years. And I'm so proud to share that we've run a zero waste campaign. And that's because I've been listening to the young people in our community for years and hearing that one of their biggest concerns is climate change. We collected old lawn signs from basements and past campaigns, and we reused them for our campaign. We also just turned in our finance reports, and I encourage everyone to look through those public records. Altogether, we received $316 worth of in-kind donations of snacks, spray paint, and markers, which we were also able to share with another campaign in Amherst. And that's it. We didn't ask you for any money. Instead, we asked folks to donate directly to students and family-centered mutual aid and redistribute to folks in our city. Now, more than ever, as we head into the cold season, we need to be supporting the folks in our community who are no longer receiving unemployment and those who will soon be without SNAP benefits. I don't want to be a part of the problem, but I will always try to be a part of the solution.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm the parent of a 9th grader who graduated from Bridge Street School and JFK, and I've served on the school committee for 6 years. During that time, I've been the lead negotiator for all agreements with our school employees union, NACE, including the last 2 collective bargaining agreements. In my professional life, I have been a community organizer for over 20 years, organizing mostly with women of color to build power and realize justice. This experience with both the dynamics of power and the hard work of solidarity has been instrumental in helping me accomplish things as a school committee member. It hasn't always been easy. Late nights, high stakes, hard decisions. But when I talk to students who find inspiration and challenge in their classrooms and from their teachers, or when I talk to educators who say they stayed in our district because of the contracts we ratified together, because they feel seen and respected by those contracts, I know it has been worth it. So worth it, in fact, that apparently I want to keep doing this. I want to continue on the school committee so that I can bring the expertise of my experience and memory. I want to keep my sights set on the long-term vision for our schools. I have a vision of a dual immersion Spanish program which embraces diversity as a strength and is highly sought after by families. In fact, I've taken a stance that any future override should include concrete investments in long-term growth for our district. Maybe that's dual immersion programs, maybe it's something else, but we shouldn't just be plugging the hole with each override. As young people have been trying to teach us for some time, now is the time for bold leadership. I'm listening.
And finally, we have Robbie.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters, the Gazette, and all of you for being here. These are very challenging times. People are hurting, and our country is deeply polarized. In response, many of us look for a sense of purpose and community on the local level to affect real change, and that's good. But taking inflexible positions makes real progress increasingly difficult to realize. We're seeing this here in Northampton, particularly around the issue of school funding. Despite our history of true progressivism, we now have voices contemptuous of different views. There is a willingness to attack and hurt others, frequently through social media, rather than engage face-to-face to pursue our common goals. Our children deserve better. Whether you've lived here for 3 generations or 3 months, we are all better served by the sharing of ideas, vigorous debate, and yes, robust argument grounded in accurate information and mutual respect, which lays the foundation for tackling our most pressing issues. But when disagreements are fueled by extreme rhetoric, citizens and public officials fail to engage on a basic human level or move forward. I want to be part of the solution. I will listen to and work with anyone eye to eye. I am hopeful and I am a realist. Being grounded in reality doesn't mean I don't want more funding for our schools. The fact is that we've needed more funding for at least 40 years, and there is no simple fix, or it would have already happened. We all want the same thing. We all want what is best for all our students. I am eager to work with others to pool our energy, ideas, and wisdom to do all we can in the face of unfathomably difficult times.
Thank you. And with that, we will go into our questions. So we'll start with the first question from Jean, and the first person to answer will actually be Robbie again, and then we'll go Emily and then Tiffany.
Good evening, and thank you for being with us. Okay, my first question. Northampton spends about $3 million to send students to charter schools or other districts. Do you support creating more in-district school options to keep families in Northampton public schools?
I think that, excuse me, charter schools have been around for about 30 years. They're here to stay, and I'm not going to vilify them. Parents have come to expect a choice. I think it's up to Northampton Public Schools to let our community know how great our schools are despite the big challenges that we face. Unfortunately, we live in a time when we need to actually market our public schools. That's new, but it's necessary. And I feel like we have not necessarily been doing that with our focus only on the funding. I'm afraid that we're actually driving people away from the district. We need to be able to hold 2 things at once: the fact that we have real problems that we're working on, and the fact that we have an absolutely incredible school system that's been known for that for decades.
And then next is Emily.
Yeah, so I absolutely support creating in-district options, within the district in order to draw families into the district. And that's really what I'm talking about when I'm talking about things like a dual immersion Spanish-English program. This kind of programming embraces our diversity as a strength, is highly sought after by families, as I said, and will help our young people create a strong and vibrant society in the future. So whether it's dual immersion or something else, any future override, like if we're really going to put money into raising our own taxes, then we need to make sure that there are commitments within it to the growth of our district to stabilize that bleeding from to charter schools. And charter schools, there are so many things that I could say about charter schools. It's not the school's fault themselves, and it's certainly not the parents, and certainly not the kids. It's a funding formula, right? So let's take the power away from that funding formula. And let me just say that before we moved here, my daughter went to a dual immersion kindergarten for 2 years. Half the day was taught in English, the other half in Spanish. It was incredible to see how it changed the dynamics in the classroom, because for half of the day, the Spanish speakers were the experts.
So recently, Alex Jarrett asked me the question, why do families choose charter schools over our public schools? And I was like, I don't know, because we don't do exit interviews of families that leave our schools. We absolutely need to find out, but when I talk to caregivers, a lot of the reasons that they're choosing charter schools are because their kids have been bullied, and we really need to focus and get better at supporting kids who have been bullied and create very clear protocols and plans so everybody in the building understands what is happening to all of the people involved. And we need to, in order to become competitive with the charter schools, we actually need to really invest in our schools. And that's gonna cost a lot of money up front, right? Like it's just going to. I've worked in a private school for years, and every time we started a new program, that was a big upfront investment, but we could do it. We could have dance programs at our high school. We could have dual language immersion, just like the Chinese immersion school. We have already amazing extended projects happening in all our schools. And I agree with Robbie, and I've talked about this many times, is we need to be marketing and showing all the amazing things happening in our classrooms, because there are way more amazing things than not, but that is not what is getting in the news right now.
Thank you all. Our next question will be asked by Alex, and the first to respond will be Emily.
Okay. Thank you all for being here tonight. What would you say are the strengths and weaknesses currently in the school district? And for what you see as weaknesses, how do you think the district should address those?
When I came to visit Bridge Street School for the first time, there was actually a dance class happening in the gymnasium that day. And I was nearly brought to tears, both because I used to be a professional dancer, but also because what that meant was that the students in that school were getting education that my kid didn't get in California. Yes, she got dual immersion Spanish-English, but she did not get dance. Of course, now the kids in Bridge Street School are not getting that same level of instruction that they were at that time, and so I see that as both a strength and a weakness. The strength is that I know that these things exist in our community, they have existed in our schools, and there are partnerships with community members. This was actually a community member who came in to the school to teach this class. So those are incredible strengths. We draw on the power of our community to strengthen our schools. A weakness, I would say, is the potential erosion of that, and that could change if it goes on long enough. And they're telling me to stop.
And next will be Robbie, and then Tiffany.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sure. It's just, what do you see as the current strengths and weaknesses within the school district? And for what you see as a weakness, how do you think the district should address those issues?
Thanks. So I think the biggest weakness is something we've been talking about all along, and that is the failure to provide for our special education students in the way that we should be. It's starting to be dealt with. It's unfortunate that something didn't happen over the course of the last school committee before our hand was forced, but I'm confident that since it's out in the open, that things will continue to happen to improve the situation so the students get everything that they need. I would say that's number one right now. Literacy is another weakness in our school, and we're not alone with that. We're not alone with either of these issues. They are pretty standard across our state and our country. Literacy rates have been falling, and there could be any number of reasons for that. I am heartened to read today that the House is considering passing legislation that will require school districts to choose a data-based model to use consistently through all their classrooms. which I think could be very important in improving our literacy rates. There are so many amazing things that happen in the schools, as I mentioned, and I would love to highlight those, but I just ran out of time, so.
And Tiffany.
Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time on the weaknesses because Emily and Robbie, thankfully I get to go last, have already shared what they are. And we know that we are not doing everything we need to be doing for our students with disabilities and for every student. And a lot of that is because of, well, there's so many reasons. Funding is one of them. The pandemic was school closures were huge, and we just went into a return to normal instead of actually addressing the impact of the pandemic emotionally, socially, academically for everybody. And so we're seeing that trickle down. But I want to talk about the strengths. We have an incredible staff, educators, cafeteria workers, crossing guards who are literally saving lives every day, who are doing everything they can with what they have, which in some cases is not much. And they are not only just holding our students and making sure that the little ones are going out in their jackets as we transition into winter, but they're also checking in with us caregivers about how to best support our kids. They're teaching them amazing things every day. I could go on, and I would love to name names, but I'm not going to name names right now because I can't name everybody. But our schools are incredible. The people in them are so amazing. The classrooms, the teachers, the caregivers, like we all want what's best for the kids, and I think that is one of our big strengths.
Thank you all. So our next question will be asked by Jean, and this will be from the audience or submitted in advance. And the order will be Tiffany, Robbie, and Emily.
Okay. The mayor serves as the chair of the school committee, which some see as a conflict of interest during budget negotiations. Would you change this arrangement or anything about the budgetary process?
So I think it's a lot of work, right? Like the mayor has a lot of work to do, and being the chair of the school committee is a lot on top of that. I would love to see a shift in power. I would love to see power more distributed. Right now in Northampton, and our district kind of mimics that. The power is very funneled, and there are very few people at the top with a lot of power. And I think it's really important that the folks that we elect are able to do all the things that we need them and want them to do. And when we're asking a mayor to not only like do all the things she needs to for our city, but also for our school, that's a lot. The budget, I would also really love to be able to, having spent time on the Jackson Street Council, we spent majority of our time strategizing the budget, which felt like a waste when there were so many other things we needed to address in the school. And I would love for us, and I'm sure everyone in here would love it, if we could have a really consistent, clear process around the budget, a very transparent one that allows for us to build and grow a budget for our schools that we don't have to spend all year fighting against each other, when we really are just hopefully all in it fighting for our schools all the time.
Thank you, and next will be Robbie.
So yeah, I think the mayor is the chair of the school committee because she knows the most about the budget. I would certainly be open to reviewing that. The charter is reviewed on the 9th, so 2029 it'll be reviewed again. I was on the 2019 charter review committee, and people are welcome to bring whatever ideas they have to that committee. And as far as the budget process, I spent the first 6 to 8 weeks of my campaign talking to absolutely anybody who would meet with me about how our city budget is produced and maintained and allocated, because I wanted to understand, because I knew if I was entering this race, I needed to understand and be able to speak to it. It is a very clear process. It's very complex. It follows very clear steps. It's not necessarily easy to understand, but that's because so much thought and preparation goes into it in caring for an entire municipality and all of its people. So, yeah, I think that things are always open to review, and I would hope that people who are trying to understand our city's budget and how it's allocated would take the time to actually sit with the people that are producing it.
Thank you. And to finish us out, Emily.
So Tiffany said many of the things that I would say, so ditto to all that. I get the both goodness and also badness of having to follow it. But in terms of the mayor being on the school committee and being specifically the chair of the school committee, not every city does this. So I know that, Robbie, one of the things that you've talked about is going to other cities to see how they run their schools. And a part of that would be seeing that, the mayor is not always on the school committee, and how does that change the dynamics? I don't necessarily have an answer to that question. The school district that I grew up in, the mayor wasn't on it because they were a taxing body themselves. The chair of the school board was a member of the school board, right? I'm not necessarily saying that we need to have that change here. I'm just saying there are lots of different ways to do this. One really, really basic thing that I think needs to change about the budget process is the budget needs to be readable. It needs to be understandable, and right now, the ways that it is explained, the lines that it all is, I've been on the school committee for 6 years, and I'm still looking at line items, trying to figure out what they are. So, no more paper, please, online.
Thank you all. So our next question will be asked by Alex, and first up to respond will be Emily, then Tiffany, then Robbie.
The superintendent's contract is set to end at the end of this year, meaning the school district will need to find a new superintendent. What qualities do you think the next superintendent should have, and how can the district attract and retain a strong superintendent?
The next superintendent needs to have the qualities of, the qualities that this community wants to see. And actually, that is one of the things that was a part of our process last time, but I think really could have been stronger, is really gathering from our community what they are looking for in a superintendent. I mean, I would say I want somebody who is a good listener. I want somebody who can see points of view other than their own. I want somebody who can, once a decision is made, can explain it in a firm way, but a way that addresses the fact that somebody else's experience of that decision might be really negative, and that is, that's valid also. These are things that I have, I've seen 3 superintendents during my time, and frankly, none of them were able to embody those leadership qualities I just espoused. And also, it's really, really hard to find a good superintendent because, I should say, it's really, really hard to find the perfect superintendent because the position of superintendent is incredibly difficult, just like the president of any large body would be. And now I have to stop.
Thank you. Yes, next up is, did I say Tiffany? Yeah, or
I don't know.
Tiffany, then Robbie, yeah.
I was like, we'll go in whatever order you tell us. So I know what I want in a superintendent. I've gone through different cycles here and when I was a student and heads of schools at the Montessori school. And I think it's really important for the school committee, for everyone to be able to work together and have a clear vision for our schools. With that clear vision, then we know exactly who we need to fit that spot. Who is going to not only understand the budgets, but who's not going to be afraid to go sit in a classroom and work with the children? Who is going to be able to hold principals and staff accountable when they are not fulfilling their contractual work? Who is going to be on top of things so when we find that, so we don't find out that our students aren't receiving the special education services in public comment? So we need a superintendent who can do like all the things. There's not a magical unicorn because they just don't exist, I'm sorry. But in order to attract and retain, we have to think outside of the box. And we also have to work with our, check in with our past superintendents, right? And be like, what do you wish somebody had told you that they didn't tell you? We need to do that work. We need to do that exit interview work so we can move forward instead of like keep pausing and being like, oh, we've been through that, we've done that over and over again.
Yes, now is Robbie.
So I would like to contribute to and build a forward-thinking school committee based on respect and collaboration with which to hire and retain a superintendent who is dynamic and bold and innovative and collaborative and who leads and responds to the committee so that they will be willing to take on the kinds of things that I think will distinguish our schools as places that parents want to send their children to. I think this next superintendent, and even the superintendent we have now, Dr. Bonner, I would really like to encourage to do things like have an in-depth analysis of how our current funding is being used to assess effectiveness and places of possible change, to advocate for a delegation to learn new best practices from similar state school districts, because we are certainly not alone here. And again, he or she, they would be very important in marketing our schools and continuing to make them more attractive.
Thank you all. So our next question will be from Jean, again submitted by the audience. And first up, we will have Robbie, then Emily, then Tiffany.
Currently, our high school schedule denies students receiving services for their IEPs a full schedule of classes, thus denying them full inclusion. How can you support the high school fully including all students?
So I don't know the answer to this, but I would expect that this would be an issue that if before the school committee and the superintendent could work with Mr. Taglieri to make sure that schedules are looked at and students can take the classes that they not only need to take to satisfy their IEPs, but classes that they can take to also enrich their schedules. So yeah, it's possible that Emily might have more information on this. I don't know. I don't have the answer to everything yet.
So this isn't just an issue at the high school, it's also an issue at the middle school. So I am a parent of a kiddo who has an IEP, and at the middle school, she didn't have access to the full range of enrichment activities, enrichment classes that she would have otherwise been able to take. That issue gets even more difficult at the high school where we have block scheduling. So each student only has 4 classes a day, which means that basically 1/4 of their day may be spent in separate special education instruction. In the elementary schools, we have solved this with push-in services, where service providers go into classrooms to provide services right there in the general education classroom. Creating something like that at the high school would require a lot of staff. The high school has, as elementary schools were getting positions added back in because of great needs at the elementary schools, the high school was seeing either attrition or, that's not entirely true, but there's been quite a bit of erosion at the high school in terms of that needed staffing.
I don't have all the answers yet either, which is kind of a great thing, right? Because that allows me to do the work of checking in with the teachers and the students and the principal and the caregivers about what is happening and asking, what do you need from us? What can we do? How can we best support you as a school committee? And like, I'm always open to having folks kind of help me and tell me what to do, because I don't ever want to assume that I have the right answers. And as Emily shared, like, it's happening at the middle school too, and for some students it's happening at the elementary level too. There are students who don't get to be with their peers all the time because we have an inclusion model that looks and sounds really great on paper, but really needed a big investment in order for it to be just right. And so if we need it, and we need it too, but if we want it to be just right, we have to make that investment. And it has to be done carefully and thoughtfully and including all stakeholders. Because if I am not finding out from the students and the caregivers and their teachers what they need, then like, why am I even doing this work?
Thank you all. The next question will be from Alex, and the order of responses will be Tiffany, Emily, Robbie.
All right. I'd like to ask about the recent contract for the NACE that was recently approved by the school committee. Emily, I know you were on the subcommittee that involved with that, but just in general, can you all just talk a little about how do you feel about the current contract with NACE, and would you have anything different in that contract?
I'm not on the negotiating committee, and I don't know all the aspects of the contract. There's only so much reading I can do in my day. What I have done is I have talked to teachers about it, and some of our educators are really excited about it, and some of our other educators, especially those who are near retirement, are not so happy about it. How do I feel about it? I want everyone who are working with our children to get paid a wage that allows for them to live in a way that doesn't require them to also rely on SNAP and EBT, to be able to go to sleep at night and not stay up stressed out because they're burnt out because they've been having to do multiple jobs in one day that they didn't expect. So I fully support NACE. I was endorsed by NACE. I love teachers as an educator myself, and I want what is best for everybody. I know that didn't really answer your question. I think maybe my own personal feelings aren't as important as how the teachers are feeling about their contract.
Am I next?
Yes, Emily, go for it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I feel incredibly grateful for the process that we went through together between the school committee and the union representatives who were at the table. It was collaborative, it was lively, it was understanding of, oh yeah, that was 5 days ago and 17 hours ago, or whatever. I don't remember how that happened either. Let's go back and look. There are so many details. It's 5 contracts. We're not ratifying one contract. We're ratifying 6 6 contracts. I don't know which unit I forgot. 6 contracts, and each of them is between 45 and 90 some pages long. So the amount of detail involved is pretty intense. But in terms of like how I feel about it, we have made huge strides towards living wages for our paraeducators and our cafeteria workers, who are the lowest paid in the district. And we've been able to make teacher salaries more competitive with neighboring districts. There was a time when those paraeducator and cafeteria worker salaries were living wages, and then the inflation kicked in. But yeah, so I am just incredibly grateful to have been able to be a part of those processes with the democratically elected representatives of our teachers and all the educators in our district.
I support unions. I support NACE. They're important. I'm always happy when teachers and staff are rewarded for their incredibly hard work. I don't think there's really a way to put a price on what they do for our children, from preschool through graduation, everything in between. So yeah, I don't know the ins and outs because I wasn't on the committee, but yeah, there's nothing I can say except I think it's a great thing.
Thank you all. So we have time for one final question for our candidates tonight, and that will be asked by Jean, and we'll hear first from Emily, then Robbie, then Tiffany.
Funding concerns for district public schools have long been a worry, often resulting in limited funds being moved from one place to another without solving the problem. Sometimes closing a school is proposed as a solution. What is your view of this suggestion?
Can you say the first 3 words of the question?
Sure. Funding concerns for district public schools.
Okay, very good. So it's not quite clear if school closure or school consolidation will be the silver bullet or the panacea that we need it to be, or that we would imagine it to be potentially. And we need to make that decision very carefully. We need to consider both the savings and the challenges of the various options, not just assume consolidation is the way to go. I will say that we've been here before. There was a time when Bridge Street School was slated to be closed, and the school community rose up and reminded us how integral Bridge Street School is to our community. It is it's a historic school building. It's the only urban school, highly walkable, which is, I think, especially important in these, with our goals around climate. And we also need to think of, well, what would we lose if we were to consolidate a school? And so I don't have those answers. There is a committee that is talking about them, but they haven't made any kind of presentation to the school committee, so they haven't shared most of their information with us as of yet. And
Thank you. Yep, next will be Robbie, and then Tiffany.
So this can be an emotional issue. I try to look at it from a practical point of view, and I'm not saying I think anything yet because we don't have all the information. I was the last class to go to junior high school at Holly Junior High, which was the building down on the corner of South and Main, and people were up in arms and very upset, but it was time. All of us could fit at JFK at that point. So it's being discussed. There's a strategic planning consolidation work group. They've been meeting since March of this year, and it includes volunteers, parents, teachers, community members, and the superintendent. They're reviewing the needs of our school buildings along with enrollment changes, which is a very real thing to consider. And based on their findings, we'll get to look and see what's in the best interest of the students and the budget and efforts to achieve net zero in climate-ready school buildings. So I look forward to seeing what they come up with. And you know, we need to think not just about this year or next year, but 5 and 10 and 20 years down the line, what is our school population going to look like? And how can we best serve those students? And that's what it's all about. Nostalgia and emotions aside, it's a very practical, real issue.
And Tiffany.
Funding concerns, there's so many, right? And a big part of it is how can we attract and retain students in our schools now, right? Like that is one of the big things. And then around school closures, this is huge. And it is a part of our strategic plan. Thankfully, we have folks who are looking into that. The biggest thing for me is we really need to have community transparency around this, like consistent communication about what is happening, reports on the meetings. I know that folks are invited to them sometimes, but also to get that information is just, I love transparency. I think it makes us all just feel a little more at ease to know what is actually happening. It's really important for us too when we explore the schools to understand that the cultures of each and every school are incredibly different. Northampton is small and it is vast in its own way. So we need to understand how our schools are serving the children in them, what it looks like, you know, to merge communities together when they're incredibly different. Is that the best thing? I don't know. I don't know yet. And I agree with my lovely folks up here, is that we need to be planning and thinking long term and not just our reactive ways that we often have in Northampton. That was the last question.
Yes, thank you all. So that was the last question, but we will be doing closing statements. So each candidate has 1 minute for closing statements. And we will first hear from Robbie, and then Emily, and then Tiffany.
Okay, thank you. I love my hometown. I attended our schools, as did my parents and my children, and I believe that public schools are critical to a community's health. Public schools are a child's first foray into engaging with their own community as they watch the adults around them model how it's done. I'm running because this next generation is critical to who we will become as a society. And I want to be part of a school committee that models engaged, passionate, productive, and respectful behavior. I've spent the bulk of my adult life caring for others. I know how to hold space for people in emotional, challenging situations and how to help take action. As a community, it's imperative that we hold opposing views with a willingness to listen and to learn. It's also critical to continuously improve our schools while celebrating all the ways we serve our students. It is true that we must make significant changes to meet the rightful needs of all our students. It is also true that Northampton Public Schools are among the highest ranked in the state.
Thank you. And next is Emily, then Tiffany.
So we find ourselves at a crossroads. Kids are still recovering from the pandemic learning loss, and we all have greater social and emotional needs. It's obvious we have differences of opinion about how to use our collective tax dollars. And to make these decisions, we all have to stretch our minds to encompass the needs of people who are different from us. The population of students in our district is increasingly more diverse than the city's voters. This means it's even more important that we put students at the center of every decision we make as a school committee. When I put down social media and engage in real conversation with my neighbors, I remember how much we still have in common, even when we disagree. You know, I have disagreed with every single member of the school committee at some point, and yet I have managed to maintain good working relationships with all of them. I would like to believe that is the kind of bold and respectful leadership our schools deserve.
Thank you, and Tiffany.
So I want us to remember as we cast our votes on Tuesday that there are actual humans in our school buildings. They're not numbers on a spreadsheet, dollars on a pay scale, or iReady scores. And these humans are incredible, all of them. Every decision we make impacts thousands. Children, educators, caregivers, and community members. So we can choose to move through this election cycle with fear, or we can choose love. Okay, you all know I love a quote. So in her book, All About Love, New Visions, Bell Hooks shared, the word love is most often defined as a noun, yet we would all love better if we used it as a verb. I come to this work filled with love. Love for liberation and justice, for creativity, for listening and acting, for truth and clarity, for the land we live on, and for the amazing learners in our community. And my love is me always choosing to center the young folks in our city in every decision I make, holding a positive vision for our schools while also thinking critically and problem-solving creatively and responsibly.
Thank you, and now it is time to give our candidates a round of applause. So thank you again all for joining us. We will be taking a 10-minute break now and then coming back and hearing from the candidates for Ward 2 of the school committee. For folks who aren't sticking around, thank you so much again for coming. Please take a look at our table in the back corner for more information and resources. Thank you. Hi, everyone. If you could take your seats, we're going to get started with the second half of the event. Awesome. Thank you all again so much for joining us and for sticking around, or if you just came for the Ward 2, thank you for joining us. Just as a reminder, before we get started into hearing from our next candidates, please silence and put away your cell phones. Keep in mind any calls you may be getting, any alarms you may have on, just until the end of the forum. If you have a question for any of the candidates for Ward 2 School Committee, please write it on a note card and pass it to the nearest aisle to be picked up. Please remember to address questions to both candidates. We want to hear from both candidates tonight. And a final reminder to please hold your applause until the end, and then we'll give a big round of applause for all our candidates. So tonight we have two candidates for Ward 2 School Committee. We have Angela Wack and Anat Weisenfreund. For our candidates, just some reminders. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements from both candidates. Then each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question from the panel, and we will be taking turns rotating who goes first. Then we will conclude with 1-minute closing statements. We won't be providing additional time for rebuttals, but if you do want to respond to something raised by the other candidate, you can definitely work that into your allotted time. And the timekeepers in front here will hold up signs telling you when you have 30 seconds and 15 seconds left. And when they do hold up that stop sign, please finish your sentence quickly. We want to hear the end of your sentence, but please wrap it up so we can move to the next question. And with that, we will get started. So first, we will begin with opening statements. Again, both candidates have 2 minutes, and we will hear first from Angela.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and Bombex. 3 years ago, my family moved to Northampton from Florida because we wanted our children to grow up in a community and attend schools that shares our values. But even amazing communities like Northampton face real challenges. I am a teacher with a master's degree in education who's taught in public schools and provided reading interventions. I'm an advocate who's led an educational organization with over 200 members, raising $40,000 to $50,000 annually. I'm a parent with 3 children, one at NHS, one at JFK, and one at HCC. I've served on the NHS School Council and JFK PTO for the past 2 years. Right now, our district faces critical challenges. We've had numerous principal changes throughout the district over several years, and we will be hiring our 4th superintendent in 5 years. This leadership instability isn't just an inconvenience, it's contributing directly to IEP failures and widening achievement gaps. According to a 2023 Boston Globe article, low-income children learning to read are now slightly better off going to school in Florida or Mississippi than here in Massachusetts. This is likely because these 2 states were early adopters of evidence-based literacy curriculum. However, unlike those 2 states, we must ensure social sciences, especially civics and history, remain a core part of our curriculum. All students, every single one of them, especially those with IEPs and 504s, must receive appropriate evidence-based curriculum with supports that transfer seamlessly between classes and schools. No student should be lost or bored for moving from one school to another in the same town. Over the last 2 years, I've attended school committee meetings and watched opportunities replaced with finger-pointing and demands. No collaboration, just conflict that has chased away leadership. Our students need elected officials who show up prepared, on time, and ready to develop equitable policies and budgets. I'm not here to tear anyone down. I'm here to bring people together to celebrate what's working while fixing what isn't.
Thank you, and next we will hear from Anat.
So thank you to the League of Women Voters and to all of you who are here and listening from home. I have been serving as your Ward 2 School Committee member and a member of the Budgets and Properties Subcommittee since January, and I bring a lifetime of professional experience. For the past 35 years, I've worked in different roles on behalf of children and caregivers as a developmental specialist with babies and moms, as a government leader in early intervention, child find, and child care, overseeing huge projects and budgets. And for the last 16 years, I have led Community Action's Head Start, where we serve hundreds of children and families with 180 staff and a $12 million budget. I'm also an advocate, make regular trips to Capitol Hill on behalf of Head Start, and have testified at the State House as well as for Elizabeth Warren and Senate chambers. I'm an endorsed infant mental health policy mentor, and I understand the lifelong impact of early experiences and the disproportionate risks for those who are poor, disabled, facing racial discrimination, and who have lived adverse childhood experiences. I know how to solve problems in complicated systems, engage all stakeholders, and I've been able to facilitate positive and lasting change in every place I have worked. I've learned a lot in my time on the school committee. Last spring, I made the motion to adopt the strong budget, which would have ensured both quality and compliance. Our superintendent recommended this budget, and the school committee voted 8-2 to adopt this budget, but it was rejected by the mayor, and this year again, our schools remain desperately under-resourced. A vacuum of leadership has created a crisis, rifts in our community, and recently, NPS was found in violation of our legal obligations serving disabled children. I'm running for election because I'm concerned about the well-being of children, caregivers, and staff, and about our city's priorities. Through my work, I have already demonstrated that I will be instrumental in solving the key issues impacting our district.
Thank you to our candidates for your opening statements. Now we will dive into questions. The first question will be from Alexander McDougall of the Daily Hampshire Gazette. And first up to respond will be Anat.
All right. Thank you both for being here tonight. You just mentioned, by both of you, the issues the district's had with IEPs, and that earlier this year, DESE found that the school district had failed to provide needed support for students with disabilities. What policies does the school need to support students with IEPs or who have disabilities?
Please repeat the last part of your question. What policies?
Yeah, just what policies does the school district need or do you support to support students with disabilities?
Well, there are two major issues here. One of them is a funding issue. We don't have enough funding to reliably provide all the services that we are required by law to provide to students with disabilities. And so that needs to continue to be a priority. We have to figure it out somehow as a community, no matter what. And the answer isn't cutting from other students who don't have disabilities. The second issue, I think, has to do with something that the case report noted, which is this deep erosion of trust of families. I think that the Northampton Public Schools really does not have an intentional family engagement policy. It's something I have a lot of experience in running Head Start programs. I'm a national touchpoints trainer. It's an evidence-based family engagement approach, and I've implemented an approach throughout our agency. I think I was reviewing a newsletter from Dr. Bonner from the other day, and she talked about family engagement, but it was all about what families should do to be nice to teachers and what families should tell their students. And I think it's the other way around. We as a district need to think about, what are we going to do for families? How are we going to treat families? How do we treat them like the expert? How do we listen to them because they know what their children need?
Thank you. And next we will have Angela.
Okay. As I touched on earlier, I do believe that part of the problem with the IEP failures is that we have had such a leadership turnover. The school that was cited for the most deficiencies, which was JFK, had 3 principals in 3 years, and the summer before last year, the principal left right as school was starting. They didn't get another principal until mid-year, end of year last year, who was fabulous, and we need to be able to keep her here because we do, as a district, have a very hard time keeping our principals in place, and that is something that I would like to work on to create a climate of warmth for all of our employees, not just our teachers, but for our principals and our superintendents as well. The other thing, and I'm not alluded to it, is funding. Funding is an issue, and I am glad we have a little bit of money and some savings accounts because I do expect that the federal government will be cutting off their 9.4% of funding that we get here. Lastly, one of the things that we're seeing, and we're seeing it in high school and middle school, is we have stuck with the same curriculum for too long. We have got to switch to evidence-based or science-based. It's the same thing, very, very synonymous curriculum in this district, and we have the money to do that with one-time funds. We need to fully implement science-based curriculum and the training for the teachers to do it. It has been proven to work throughout the United States. It has closed achievement gaps throughout the country. We need to use it here. That's one of the issues that Massachusetts has.
Thank you. And our next question will be asked by Jean Sherdak of the League of Women Voters of Franklin County. And our first response will be from Angela.
All of our neighboring districts are experiencing concerns about adequate funding for public schools. Name 3 specific causes of this widespread funding shortfall. Tell how you would understand it as a school committee member.
Okay. As Robbie alluded to earlier, public education in the United States has been chronically underfunded from the beginning. When the IDEA law, which is your Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, went into effect, the original act was in the 70s, it became known as that later on. The federal government, along with the laws of what we're supposed to do for these students, was supposed to fund 40% of the above and beyond what the cost of an average student would be. They have never gotten above 18%. Additionally, Chapter 70 aid has not increased with inflation. And that is another part of the issue. And special education services have continued to get more expensive. We cannot say we're going to spend around $20,000 per student and not realize that it costs $100,000, sometimes $300,000 to properly educate some of these special education students. So I would be advocating for some Chapter 8, or for a change in Chapter 8 funding, as well as a change in the special education circuit breaker, because it is not funding everything adequately. It is amazing to me that our city has been able to fund the schools like they have. It does not happen this way in other places. A lot of places get much more funding from the state. We get about 18% from our state. That is a huge issue. Most other states give their districts around 40%. I think we should all give ourselves a clap on the back for being able to fund the schools as adequately as we have up until this point. I am not saying that I would not advocate for more money from the city, because I will, but we also need to look at other resources.
Thank you, and Anat.
Thank you. I want to say, Angela, that it's one of the first times I've heard you say that about advocating for more money from the city, because I think in the past you've said that it's important to look for grants and foundation funding and so forth, which of course is important, but it's not my perspective. So I agree with a lot of what Angela is saying about an inadequate Chapter 70 funding formula. The charter school formula is punitive to public schools. The circuit breaker reimbursements are insufficient. But in Northampton, we're a relatively wealthy city with millions of dollars of surpluses for the last 10 years. And we need to be able to do more and have the discussions to do more with our local contribution for our budgets. You know, it's interesting to note that Northampton spends almost $8,000 less per pupil than Amherst. And it's borne out in the quality of our services. Yeah, wow.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Alex, and we will hear from Anat first.
Okay. I asked this question at the previous session, so I'll ask it again. What qualities do you think the next superintendent should have, and what can we do to attract and retain a strong superintendent?
And I'll answer it with some of what was said before, too. I mean, I think that the role of a superintendent is very, very complicated. It's a huge responsibility, and it's very difficult. And I think what I have observed in our current superintendent is that there is a real conflict with the mayor being the chair of the school committee. The school committee oversees the superintendent, but because the mayor in our structure really is the one who makes all the final fiscal decisions, it is unavoidable for a superintendent to see her as her boss, right? So even though our current superintendent truly supported the strong budget, she was not able, when she went in front of city council and sat in front of the mayor, to really support it. It was very difficult. So I think what we would look for is somebody with exceptional strength and exceptional ability to manage those conflicts and to advocate fully for children and for what she thinks is right, and maybe even go head to head with the mayor, who holds outsized power in our system of government.
So I have seen lots of superintendents do lots of different things, but I think the one thing that a good superintendent needs to do is have strong educational leadership experience. And that experience in a community similar to Northampton's. We are not an easy community for a superintendent to supervise the schools at. I've always lived in communities that were like that, that are just, we're challenged. We challenge our leaders to do better in this town, and that we need somebody that can stand up and say, I will do better, and this is how I'm gonna do better. They need to have a plan when we come in. That is one of the things we'll be talking about. They need to be receptive to new ideas. They also need to have experience with evidence-based curriculum. We are almost 25 years behind in what we're doing in our city, and that is part of our widening achievement gap and our IEP problems is we do not have the proper curriculum in place. If you think about how much medicine has changed in 25 years, or the presidency has changed in 25 years, they have done scientific research on brains to learn how they read, and we are not implementing what they've learned since the 1990s. And we need to get that curriculum in place. We need to train our teachers properly to be able to do that. We also need somebody innovative and somebody that is up to date with current pedagogy, as well as somebody that's willing to stay long-term in Northampton and collaborate with the school committee.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Jean. And first up, we will hear from Angela and then Anat.
What is the significance of NASE, N-A-S-C, Northampton Association of School Employees, in the school district?
They're vitally important. And NASE is the union that represents every single school employee in this town. I was a member of the school committee, or not the school committee, sorry, the union when I taught. It is a very important thing. It provides, in Florida, we couldn't strike just like you can't strike in Massachusetts, but it provides stability, it provides help with raises. It also provides, it is very good that they are able to advocate with the school committee, work with the school committee to make sure that everybody is making a living wage, because that is something that is very important. I have a long history of experience with the unions, and unfortunately they have not returned my emails, but I would like to be able to work with them closely.
Well, NACE, as Angela said, is the union of school employees, and they're an excellent union. I'm proud to be endorsed by them. Their voice has been very, very important in the past. Well, I've only been on the school committee since January, but I've heard them loud and clear. Everybody who takes care of children in our society and educates children in our society is not respected as a full professional. I heard our previous candidate, Robbie, talk about salary as being a reward. It is not a reward. It is a wage. It is earned. Teachers are highly qualified professionals. I think it's the most important job in the world. And NACE is providing is ensuring that our teachers get a fair deal.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Alex, and we will first hear from Anat and then Angela.
Thank you. This is a topic that's more on a national level, but in certain school districts across the country, there have been pressures to teach certain subjects, namely history, in a certain manner that could have certain effects on free speech. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on this issue, and how would you theoretically deal with it within the current school district, within our school district?
Alex, could I ask you to be a little more specific? What do you mean certain things in certain ways and possibly? I mean, can you be a little more specific?
Sure. I mean, based upon my knowledge, I mean certain historical topics such as maybe like civil rights, the Civil War, just topics like that.
Like real history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? And then, you know, if there were any pressures on this school district, theoretically, how would you work to deal with that?
My thoughts are that we're living right now under a fascist administration that is trying to eradicate people's rights, that they are plundering and thieving our country. They are focusing their attacks on the most vulnerable members of society, and they're using precisely the chronic disinvestment in education over decades in our country to tell people stories that aren't true. And so this is really why I'm running. I'm running because I want us not to disinvest in education. I want us to think about, even if those are rainy day funds, those reserve funds, guess what? Our kids are standing in the rain. Invest in our kids. So, I mean, I don't even know how to answer that other than, of course, you know, I would do everything I possibly could to support the honest teaching of history and everything else, and to support the most vulnerable children in our schools and community.
I've actually, having come from Florida, have witnessed what happens when you start messing with history, or you stop testing it, you stop teaching it because it's not part of your testing curriculum. And that is actually one of the reasons, one of many reasons that we chose Massachusetts, because we know with the history here, you're going to teach it. I have got to say, we do a phenomenal job of teaching history, not some version of history, the actual events that happen. I mean, we're sitting right across from the Sojourner Truth Memorial. I never learned about Sojourner Truth until we moved up here. I shouldn't say that. I should say, I never learned that she had a society up here until we moved up here. What a wonderful thing for students to be able to learn. My youngest child has learned far more history and social sciences than my older two ever did in Florida. It is the most important thing we can teach our students, because schools, the reason we have education, public education, is for democracy and to be able to have informed citizens that can make reasonable decisions for our government. When you get rid of that, you start undermining your democracy, and all you really have to do is start looking at what's happening in the South, and you can see what happens after you go a generation and a half without social sciences and civics and the actual truth of our history. I will not accept any curriculum from the federal government at this time under this administration, because they are working with some of the groups that I fought off in Florida. And they are rewriting history, and that is not an okay thing. That is not how we sustain our democracy or get it back in this country.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Jean, and we will first hear from Angela and then Anat.
Northampton spends about $3 million to send students to charter schools or other districts. Do you support creating more in-district school options to keep families in Northampton public schools?
Absolutely. I want to start by saying charter schools exist. I am not for any expansion of charter schools, nor am I for any kind of voucher program that the state might come up with or the federal government might come up with. I have seen what happens to public education when you start messing with pulling different kids out, sending them to charter schools, voucher programs. The education system in other states is decimated because of this. I would, rather than try to, I do believe whatever Tiffany said about an exit survey. As we knocked on doors, I knocked on every door I could that opened, or I spoke to everybody that opened. We knocked on every door in our ward, which I believe was around 1,000. We either left literature or we talked to them. The ones that don't send their kids to our public schools, I don't really hear about the bullying so much as I hear about we don't challenge our students. We have an issue on both sides of the spectrum. We are not challenging our higher achieving learners. We need to fix our IEP problem, but we need to be able to deliver curriculum for all of our students to be able to meet all of their needs, whether they're a student that wants to read a book that's 5 grades ahead of where they are about their special topic in history that they really want, or somebody that needs more support to be able to read. It is very important that we keep our students here, and I would look into developing other ways to be able to bring more students in.
I don't know that my answer is all that different. You know, I think, as with a lot of things, I think we need to understand why it's happening, right? Similar to declining enrollment. We don't really know why it's happening. We don't really know why people are sending their kids to charter schools, or so many of them. We need to find out. We need to talk to parents. We need to hold exit surveys, like Tiffany said earlier. And, you know, I heard a lot earlier about marketing our schools, and that's fine, but the biggest fans of schools are families. And when families are happy in schools, and when families get what they need, and when their children come home happy, and when their children tell them interesting stories about what they learned that day, and when they see their children growing and writing and reading and being curious about stuff, that's when a community is excited about their schools, and that is infectious. That is the best marketing you can have, and that is when people want to come to Northampton like they used to. I want to move to Northampton because of their great public schools. And nobody said that in the last couple of years, right? And the reason for that is the chronic underfunding.
Thank you to the candidates. Our next question will be from Alex, and we will hear from Anat and then Angela.
If it were possible, would you vote to support the City Council opting in to increase the mayor's proposed school budget?
I love the if it were possible. Well, it is possible. Yes, if I get to remain in my seat, I will absolutely again ask the City Council to opt in. I think that any legislative body should use all of the tools at its disposal to do their job. And I think that there was this story spun around opting in that it was going to upset the mayor, and that way we can't talk to them, we trust the mayor, and we can do it without opting in. And it was really kind of incredible to witness. I really can't make any sense of it whatsoever. Why wouldn't the body, which doesn't have actually that much power anyway in our city government, why wouldn't they take every tool they can and at least debate it? I think it's an incredibly low-risk thing to opt in. The mayor even has to approve it. So absolutely, I would ask them to opt in.
I guess this is where we disagree, because I do not see a reason to opt in, because in order to opt in, you're going to have, and to move funds around, you're going to have to cut money from other city departments, and the other city departments are already razor-edge margins. And then you do have to get the mayor to agree to it. I think that the opt-in provision doesn't create new money. It just gives the city council the power to reallocate existing money from other city departments to the schools. And then you still need 2/3 vote from the city council to be able to pass that. I think part of what's being missed here is that both the school committee and the city council are legislative bodies. We do work with budget, but we're also legislative bodies, and we do need to listen to what our leaders are saying when it comes to this. I would really like to know, where would you get the money in the city budget to be able to give more to the schools? Are we going to cut from DPW, which we already know is underfunded? Maybe Health and Human Services, which is now also underfunded because they lost their grants from the federal government. Perhaps the DCC, which is also underfunded because they lost their grants from the nation as well.
Thank you. I will turn it to Jean for our next question. We'll hear from Angela and then Anat.
What are the 3 core policy changes you would like to make?
Okay, bear with me for a second. So there is, and one school, here it is, good. There are three policy changes I would like to make. One, and I've already spoken to to both Holly Gazy and Gwig Agna about this being something that we can look at, is to change school committee policy DBJ, which allows the superintendent to make up to $10,000 transfers between one area of the line of the budget to another. I believe that with our current situation, with what's going on and our turnover continuously, superintendent, that the school committee needs to be involved with the superintendent and support and collaborate with the superintendent so that everybody takes responsibility for cuts if they need to happen, for successes if they're there. The other thing that I would like to change that I do not currently see is that I would like to make sure that we have a policy that requires at least one member on every school council, every PTO, all the CPACs, and any other district-wide organizations that I might have just left out. The fact that the only place that teachers feel and the community feels that they can go to make a complaint about the schools is school committee meetings is wrong. There should be other ways to access your representatives, and I don't know why that isn't already instilled. The other thing I would change is to get back to the foundation of what the law says a school committee should do. Which is to set educational goals, enact policies, approve and monitor the budget, and hire and evaluate the superintendent. I feel that the school committee in Northampton has lost its direction that the state has given us in its legislation.
The one, I think the most important change I would like to see is to implement an intentional family engagement policy throughout the district, and to require everybody to be trained in a common approach. I think that that's really will go to the heart of the matter of people working together on behalf of students. Again, I come from an early childhood background where we're really good at this and we know about this, and I know that when our parents always come and talk to us and say, oh my God, I left Head Start and I went to kindergarten, and all of a sudden nobody's talking to me and everybody thinks I'm a pain in the ass because I'm advocating for my child. So I think that is a huge change, and I think it will in particular also be very, very important for parents of children with special needs. I don't know if this is a policy, but I would like to see monthly presentations by the CPAC to the school committee. I would like to see, especially given all of the concerns we have right now. The other thing I'd like to see, and again, I don't know if this is a policy, but I'd really like to see out of school time, after school, early bird, late bird at every single school. And I think this is a very, very doable thing, and we're working on it right now. It's pretty much self-sustaining.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Alex, and we'll hear from Anat and then Angela.
Okay, I'm going to rephrase slightly a question I asked the first forum. What do you say is the biggest strength in the school district currently, and then what do you feel is the biggest weakness in the school district currently?
I go first, right? Yeah. I think the biggest strength we have are our staff. I've had the privilege of meeting many of them since January, and I am blown away by their level of commitment. I listen to them very closely at public comment. I see them outside of public comment. Their expertise, their longevity, their commitment, they will go above and beyond like brilliant teachers do for all of our children. I think that's the biggest strength that we have, and it is a big strength. I think that we have created through a real gross vacuum of leadership a toxic environment that is felt in our schools. I think the insufficient funding, the callousness with which we have treated parents and community members who have come and spoken to us. I never heard the mayor say that she wants to fix anything before we got slapped on the wrist by the state. I really have a problem with that. I think that is our biggest weakness, the culture that we have created through underfunding our education.
Okay. We have many strengths. I'm going to do the weaknesses real quick and then get to the strengths. Our literacy. We are not delivering a literacy curriculum in a modern standard and a modern technique. And we're seeing that deficit in the high school and the middle school students that still are challenged with reading, especially when it comes to fluency and phonemic awareness. I also think we have an IEP compliance problem. And I really don't understand why the school committee for 2 years has had people coming to them complaining and complaining and complaining about it, and they didn't appear to look into it. They just seem to keep blaming the mayor instead of doing the work. We also have a problem with keeping leadership. And unfortunately, I think that part of that is the tone that we have set for our education. Who wants to come work to somewhere that the schools are horrible? Who wants to go to school in a place that the schools are underfunded and horrible and falling apart? I do think we have a lot of strengths. We have a fabulous amount of a great group of teachers. We have wonderful staff, all the way from the cafeteria workers to the bus drivers. We also have, now we have in place fabulous principals that we have got to work hard to keep in place. We also have something that I haven't heard mentioned, which is in Northampton, we have an unusual situation where our students can choose from 2 different high schools, both of which receive funding from Northampton, from Northampton, the city. We also have a phenomenal theater program at the high school, which I would like to see if we can expand that. Perhaps that would be one way to increase enrollment in elementary schools if we can expand it all the way down.
Thank you. So this will be our last question of the night for our candidates, and it will be asked from Jean, and we will first hear from Angela and then Anat.
Got a couple of good ones here. It's my last question. What should our district do to repair relationships of families whose children have had their children's IEPs violated and had to go to the state for acknowledgement?
Well, I do think an apology from the people that were in charge when those things happened is due. From everybody who was in charge. School committee, superintendent, mayor, if that's part of her purview, which it is part of her purview. Because you should not have IEPs slipping through the cracks. That is a big problem. One of the things we need to do, though, is to encourage community discourse. I have joined CPAC. I have been to the last 2 meetings. I think being present and listening is extremely important, and that has not happened, it does not appear, to the extent that it needs to be able to bring the community back together. We also need to model what functional democracy looks like to our students, because the community discourse at our level, the adult level, is seeping down into the student level, and they're having issues in the schools with children that don't understand how to get along anymore and say mean, nasty things to each other because they see it online. Or their teachers or their teachers or their interventionists are saying things about other people online, and our students are online. We need to keep that in mind when we post online, which is part of why I'm sure everybody here has noticed I don't post much on Facebook. I learned a long time ago in a challenging situation in Florida that sometimes just stating the facts and that's it is all you need to do.
Jean, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this question because I really feel compelled to answer what Angela has been saying, and it will intertwine. Everybody here who knows me knows that I've been an incredible advocate for children and for families with disabilities. To blame the school committee for the IEP failures is rich. We have been the most outspoken advocates on the school committee, and we have, as you, Angela, said, begged the mayor to fix it. And I want to share something that I've never shared publicly. When I first started, everybody was very excited to have me, and I think people made a lot of assumptions about me, even though I told them I would always put children and families first. And the idea of being independent was confused with, I have to agree with everything that the mayor and her friends say. And I didn't. When I was, you don't know, I don't know why you're shaking your head, but you don't know. Because you know, I'm going to tell you something. When I was quote unquote oriented to my job by the superintendent and the mayor, I was told by the superintendent that I shouldn't take those parents so seriously because they're just a tiny fraction of parents in this community. And they're being egged on by NACE. And it's not true. And some of those kids don't even belong in our district. And the mayor sat there. And I turned to the superintendent and I said, Dr. Bonner, where do you think they should go? That's when I knew what was going on in the city, with all due respect. Do not blame the school committee for these failures. These are failures of funding by the mayor and a distortion of fact.
Thank you to the candidates. Thank you to the candidates, and yes, we'll give our round of applause to the candidates now, as that was the last. We do still have our 1-minute closing statements from the candidates, and we will first hear from Anat and then end with Angela.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, for asking questions, for listening. It ended up being an exciting evening, I think. Look, school systems are very complex. They're made up of people. And school budgets are complex. Of course we need more money from the state. Of course we need charter school funding formulas changed. But what we're struggling with here is not primarily a money problem in our city. In a city like Northampton, where we produce millions of dollars in surplus revenue year after year and have built extraordinary reserves, we have the opportunity to figure this out and to be an exceptional model district that takes good care of all of our children, caregivers, and staff. I have knocked on hundreds of doors, and everyone I've talked to wants good schools and fairness for our children. We can figure this out. But we need leaders who listen deeply and leaders who stand up for what's right, who demonstrate empathy and curiosity and have not just the willingness but the courage to do things differently. I have, and I will, and I want to continue to serve you by being part of that future.
And we'll hear from Angela with her closing statement.
Yes. I'm running for school committee because I believe in collaboration over conflict. Solutions over complaints. As a teacher, advocate, and parent, I've seen what's possible when communities commit to our children's success. Our children deserve better than a revolving door of superintendents and principals. They deserve evidence-based literacy curriculum and a school committee that shows up prepared and collaborates instead of creating conflict. I've proven I can bring people together, managing a board through a pandemic and politically charged climate, raising tens of thousands annually, and building coalitions that got things done. But here's what matters most. I'm already doing the work. I'm on the school council. I've had the discussions with Mr. Taglieri about how they're going to be able to improve time on learning for our IEP kids at the high school, which was a question from the first one. I'm on the PTO. I've taken the required state training for elected school committee members. I attend the meetings. I see what's working and what isn't, and I know how to bridge the gap. Our children are watching how we lead. Let's show them that collaborative, student-centered, solution-focused leadership is possible. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight.
On behalf of the League and the community, thank you to both the candidates. Special thank you to our hosts and thank you to our panelists. Just a reminder that Election Day is November 4th. There's information and resources at the table in the back, the City Clerk's office, Northampton Open Media, and the League's website. The forums held last night and tonight will be available on Northampton Open Media's YouTube channel in a few days if you want to rewatch. But thank you again, and be sure to get to the polls on November 4th.